The Galactic Council chamber hummed with nervous energy as representatives from a dozen species gathered around the circular podium. Ambassador ZYXDH of the Ethereal Collective stood at the center, his translucent form shimmering with anxiety. The emergency session had been called after their latest military defeat against the Void Hunters, a ruthless species that had been systematically destroying entire star systems. Honored delegates, ZYXDH began, his voice carrying through the universal translators, we face extinction. The Void Hunters have consumed 17 systems in the past solar cycle. Our combined fleets cannot match their technology or their brutality. The assembled aliens murmured in agreement. The reptilian Soren delegate, General Kresh, slammed his scaled fist on the table. Our weapons are useless against their shields. Our tactics mean nothing when they show no mercy to civilians. We need a different approach. Ambassador Yilia from the plant-based Verdanian Empire rustled her leaves in distress. My people's worlds have been stripped bare. The Void Hunters don't just conquer, they devour everything. Even the soil is left dead and empty. Dr. Quintal, the insectoid researcher from the Hive Worlds, clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. There may be a solution, though it comes with significant risks. My people have been studying the galactic database of classified species, those deemed too dangerous for contact. The chamber fell silent. Every species knew about the classified list, but none had ever considered actually contacting those worlds. They were labeled as Deathworlders, planets so hostile that the very act of evolving their created beings of unimaginable violence and unpredictability. You're suggesting we contact Deathworlders? Asked Ambassador ZYXDH, his form flickering with disbelief. The Council banned such contact for good reason. Every simulation shows they would be as dangerous to us as the Void Hunters. Dr. Quintal spread his wings, a gesture of explanation among his people. The simulations assumed normal circumstances. But these are not normal circumstances. The Void Hunters are an extinction-level threat. Perhaps only another extinction-level threat can stop them. General Kresh leaned forward. What species are you proposing? The insectoid's compound eyes gleamed as he activated a holographic display. A blue-green planet appeared, rotating slowly. This world is designated as Classification Red, Maximum Danger. The inhabitants call it Earth, and they call themselves humans. The hologram zoomed in, showing swirling storms, massive oceans, and continents scarred by tectonic activity. Data scrolled alongside the image, and several delegates gasped at what they saw. Surface gravity 1.3 times galactic standard, Dr. Quintal read aloud. Atmospheric composition includes corrosive oxygen. Weather patterns include electrical storms, hurricanes with winds exceeding 300 kilometers per hour, and temperature variations that would kill most galactic species. The planet is geologically active with frequent earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. Ambassador Yilia's leaves turned a pale shade. How does anything survive on such a world? That's what makes them dangerous, continued the doctor. Evolution on Earth didn't just create survivors, it created predators. The dominant species, humans, evolved from persistent hunters. They literally ran their prey to death across vast distances. But that's not the concerning part. He changed the display to show historical footage that their long-range sensors had captured. Images of human warfare filled the chamber. Explosions that could be seen from orbit, cities reduced to rubble, weapons that could poison entire regions. These creatures wage war against their own species with a ferocity that matches the Void Hunters. They have weapons capable of sterilizing their own planet, yet they continue to multiply and spread. Our xenobiologists estimate that if left unchecked, they would expand across the galaxy within a few thousand years. The ethereal ambassador's form nearly solidified with shock. You want us to invite galactic conquest? No, said Dr. Quintal firmly. I want us to invite galactic salvation. You see, humans have one trait that makes them different from the Void Hunters. They form alliances. Their history shows they will fight together against common enemies, even former adversaries. General Kresh studied the data. Their technology appears primitive. How could they possibly help us? Their technology is primitive by our standards, yes. But their capacity for innovation is unprecedented. In less than a century, they went from first flight to landing on their moon. Another century later, they had basic space travel. Give them access to galactic technology, and there's no telling what they might accomplish. Ambassador ZYXDH floated closer to the display. The risks are enormous. If we're wrong about their willingness to ally with us, then we face extinction by 2 threats instead of 1, completed Dr. Quintal. But if we're right, we might have found the only species in the galaxy capable of matching the Void Hunter's aggression. The chamber erupted in debate. Some delegates argued that contacting humans was tantamount to suicide. Others insisted that desperate times called for desperate measures. The argument continued for hours, with no clear consensus emerging. Finally, Ambassador Yilia spoke up, her voice carrying the weight of her species' suffering. My world are dying. My people are being harvested like crops. If there's even a small chance these humans can help us, we must take it. General Kresh nodded grimly. The Soren Empire agrees. We are warriors, but we cannot fight what we cannot defeat. Perhaps it takes Deathworlders to kill Deathworlders. One by one, the other delegates voiced their agreement. Some were reluctant, others desperate, but the vote was unanimous. They would contact Earth. Dr. Quintal began outlining the plan. We'll need a small diplomatic vessel, something that won't be seen as threatening. The approach must be carefully managed. Humans are territorial and react aggressively to perceived threats. Who will make contact? Asked Ambassador ZYXDH. I volunteer, said Dr. Quintal. My species' research into human psychology gives me the best chance of successful communication. Within days, a sleek Hive World vessel was prepared for the journey to Earth. The ship was equipped with translation protocols, gifts of basic technology as goodwill gestures, and enough defensive capabilities to escape if things went wrong. As Dr. Quintal prepared for departure, the weight of the galaxy's fate settled on his chitinous shoulders. The journey to Earth took several weeks through hyperspace. During the trip, Dr. Quintal studied every piece of available data on human behavior. He learned about their complex social structures, their art, their music, their literature. What he found both fascinated and terrified him. Humans created beauty of incredible complexity while simultaneously devising weapons of unprecedented destruction. They showed compassion for other species while hunting them to extinction. They formed bonds of loyalty that lasted lifetimes while betraying each other over the smallest slights. They were a walking contradiction, and that made them unpredictable. As the ship emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, Dr. Quintal's sensors immediately detected multiple human space installations. Primitive by galactic standards, but more extensive than expected. Orbital platforms around their planet, mining operations on asteroids, research stations throughout the system. They're already expanding beyond their home world, he reported back to the Council. Their growth rate is even faster than our projections suggested. The reply came back quickly. Proceed with extreme caution. Any sign of hostility, retreat immediately. Dr. Quintal guided his ship deeper into the system, broadcasting on multiple frequencies the Universal Peaceful Contact Protocol. It took less than an hour for the humans to respond. Unknown vessel, this is Earth Defense Command. You are entering restricted space. State your intentions immediately or you'll be fired upon. The directness of the communication surprised him. No formal greetings, no diplomatic protocols, just a straightforward demand and a clear threat. He activated the translation matrix and responded. Greetings, inhabitants of Earth. I am Dr. Quintal of the Galactic Council. I come in peace, seeking dialogue with your leaders on a matter of mutual interest. There was a long pause. Then, Galactic Council? Stand by for security verification. Any aggressive action will be met with force. Through his sensors, Dr. Quintal watched as human vessels approached from multiple directions. They were small, angular craft that moved with surprising speed and coordination. Their weapons were primitive, but numerous, and their formation suggested advanced tactical thinking. Dr. Quintal, you are cleared for approach to Luna Station. Follow the transmitted flight path exactly. Deviation will be considered hostile. As the ship was escorted through the human defensive grid, Dr. Quintal couldn't help but admire their efficiency. These weren't the chaotic savages he'd expected. They were organized, cautious, and clearly experienced in dealing with potential threats. Luna Station orbited Earth's moon, a sprawling complex of docking bays, research facilities, and defensive platforms. As his ship was guided into a docking bay, Dr. Quintal prepared himself for first contact with humanity. The airlock cycled, and Dr. Quintal found himself face-to-face with his first humans. They were smaller than he'd expected, but there was something unsettling about their posture. They moved like predators, even when standing still. Their eyes tracked his every movement with an intensity that made his exoskeleton tingle with unease. "Dr. Quintal, I presume," said the lead human, a tall female with short gray hair and numerous scars visible on her exposed skin. "I'm Admiral Chun, commander of this facility. You mentioned the Galactic Council. We weren't aware such an organization existed." "That was by design, Admiral Chun. Your species was classified as too dangerous for contact until now." Admiral Chin's expression didn't change, but Dr. Quintal's thermal sensors detected a slight increase in her body temperature. "Dangerous? That's rich, coming from someone who can apparently travel between stars. What's changed?" "We're being invaded," Dr. Quintal said simply, "by a species we call the Void Hunters. They've destroyed 17 star systems and show no signs of stopping. Our combined fleets cannot match them. And you think we can? We think you might be the only species that can. You see, Admiral Chun, the Void Hunters are also from what we classify as a death world. They evolved to be perfect predators, just as you did. But they have had access to galactic technology for thousands of years." Admiral Chun was quiet for a long moment, studying him with those unsettling human eyes. "You're asking us to fight your war for you. I'm asking you to fight for the survival of all life in this galaxy, including your own species. The Void Hunters don't take prisoners, and they don't leave worlds habitable. When they're finished with the rest of us, they'll come for Earth. Even assuming you're telling the truth, why should we trust you? You've been watching us this whole time, keeping us isolated because you thought we were dangerous." Dr. Quintal spread his wings in the gesture his people use for honesty. "Because, Admiral Chun, you're dangerous. That's exactly why we need you." The Admiral smiled then, and Dr. Quintal understood why humans were classified as apex predators. That smile promised violence to anyone who threatened what humans protected. "Let's go meet the president," she said. This conversation just got very interesting. The journey to Earth felt surreal to Dr. Quintal as Admiral Chin's personal transport descended through the planet's atmosphere. He watched through the viewports as they passed through layers of clouds that would be toxic to most galactic species, seeing a world that defied everything he thought he knew about habitable planets. Lightning storms raged across entire continents. Hurricane systems the size of small moons churned across vast oceans. Mountain ranges thrust up from the surface like broken bones, and he could see the glow of active volcanoes even in daylight. This was the kind of world that galactic scientists used as an example of what happened when planetary formation went catastrophically wrong. Yet cities sprawled across every continent, connected by networks of transportation that pulsed with activity. Millions of lights indicated a thriving civilization that had not only survived this hellish world, but turned it into something that sustained billions of inhabitants. "First time seeing a real death world?" asked Admiral Chun, noticing his fascination. "I've studied the data, but seeing it in person, Dr. Quintal pauset. How do you function in such an environment?" "Same way you probably function in yours. We adapted. What you see as hostile, we see as home. Those storms provide water and energy. Those volcanoes created the soil that feeds us. Those mountains give us metals and minerals. Everything that makes this world dangerous also makes it valuable." The transport landed at what Admiral Chin identified as Andrews Space Base, a massive complex that had clearly been adapted from older human aviation facilities. As they disembarked, Dr. Quintal was struck by the casual way humans moved in what his instruments registered as a lethally dangerous environment. The gravity was crushing by galactic standards. The oxygen concentration would be toxic to most species. The electromagnetic radiation from the star would cause cellular damage in minutes. Yet humans walked around in simple clothing, breathing the atmosphere as if it were perfectly normal. "The president is waiting in the secure conference facility," Admiral Chun explained as they were escorted through corridors lined with what Dr. Quintal's sensors identified as armed guards. Each human carried weapons that, while primitive, could easily penetrate his exoskeleton. "I should warn you, President Martinez has a military background. She won't be easily impressed." They entered a room where several humans were already seated around a polished table. Dr. Quintal's thermal sensors detected elevated stress levels in all of them, but their faces remained carefully neutral. At the head of the table sat a woman with dark hair and eyes that seemed to catalog everything they saw. Dr. Quintal, she said without preamble, I'm President Martinez. Admiral Chun has briefed me on your situation. Before we go any further, I need proof that you're telling the truth. What kind of proof would satisfy you? Show us these void hunters. Show us what they've done to your worlds. Dr. Quintal activated his portable holographic projector. The room filled with images that made several humans lean back in their chairs. Worlds stripped down to bare rock. Space battles where entire fleets were consumed by weapons that seemed to eat matter itself. Recordings of void hunter ships. Massive dark structures that seemed to absorb light. These recordings come from 17 different star systems, Dr. Quintal explained. Each one was home to billions of sentient beings. The void hunters don't just conquer, they consume everything. Organic matter, metals, even the fundamental particles that make up planets. President Martinez studied the recordings intently. Their technology is clearly superior to ours. Why do you think we can help? Because you're like them, Dr. Quintal said, then quickly continued as he saw several humans tense. Not in motivation, but in capability. Both humans and void hunters evolved on worlds that should have been impossible to survive. But while they evolved to consume everything they encountered, you evolved to adapt to anything you encountered. He changed the holographic display to show comparative data. Void hunters are perfect at destruction, but they've never needed to innovate. They've used the same basic technology for millennia because it always worked. Humans, on the other hand, have never stopped innovating because your world never stopped challenging you. A man at the far end of the table spoke up. General Parker, Joint Chiefs of Staff. Even if we wanted to help, our weapons are centuries behind theirs. How do you propose we fight something like that? By doing what humans have always done, by adapting faster than your enemies can respond. We offer you access to galactic technology and manufacturing capabilities. You offer us tactical innovation and strategic thinking. President Martinez leaned forward. And what guarantees do we have that once these void hunters are defeated, the rest of the galaxy won't decide where the next threat to be eliminated? The question cut straight to the heart of Dr. Quintal's concerns. He had wondered the same thing during his journey to Earth. I cannot give you such guarantees, he admitted. What I can tell you is that if the void hunters aren't stopped, there won't be a galaxy left to threaten you. That's not exactly reassuring, said another human, a woman wearing what appeared to be scientific insignia. Dr. Sarah Kim, Director of Advanced Research. From a purely tactical standpoint, we'd be revealing our capabilities to potentially hostile species. Doctor, may I ask what your people know about galactic politics? We've detected artificial signals from several nearby star systems. Our long-range sensors have identified what appear to be artificial structures around distant stars. We know we're not alone, but we've assumed that any species capable of interstellar travel would either be benevolent or would have contacted us already. Dr. Quintal's wings rustled in what his people considered nervous laughter. Dr. Kim, the galaxy is home to thousands of intelligent species. Most of them are peaceful by galactic standards, which means they have never fought a war in their recorded history. They solve disputes through negotiation and compromise. They share resources and knowledge freely. That sounds positive, said President Martinez. It is under normal circumstances. But it also means they have no idea how to fight something that cannot be negotiated with. The most warlike species in the galactic community might have one minor territorial dispute every 1,000 years. General Parker's expression hardened. And then they encounter something that actually wants to fight. Exactly. The Void Hunters represent something the galactic community has never dealt with. A species that views violence not as a last resort, but as a preferred option. Our military leaders study tactics from thousands of years ago because they've never needed to develop new ones. Dr. Kim looked intrigued. What about human military doctrine? Have you studied our conflicts? Extensively. In the past century alone, your species has fought conflicts involving every type of terrain, every type of technology, and every type of strategic objective. You've developed tactics for urban warfare, guerrilla warfare, cyber warfare, economic warfare, and psychological warfare. You've learned to coordinate forces across entire planets in real time. The room fell quiet as the humans absorbed this information. Dr. Quintal could see them processing the implications that their violent history, the thing they were least proud of, might be their greatest asset. President Martinez finally spoke. Assuming we agree to help, what exactly are you proposing? A formal alliance between humanity and the Galactic Council. We provide you with advanced technology, manufacturing capabilities, and resource access. You provide tactical expertise, strategic planning, and, he paused, direct military assistance. You want us to fight your war, said General Parker bluntly. I want you to fight our war together. The Void Hunters are heading toward the galactic core, consuming everything in their path. Current projections suggest they'll reach the primary trade routes within 2 years. If they control those routes, they'll be able to strangle the remainder of galactic civilization. Admiral Chun, who had remained quiet during the discussion, suddenly spoke. How long do we have to prepare? Our most recent intelligence suggests the Void Hunters are currently engaged in consuming a resource-rich system approximately 50 light-years from here. Based on their historical patterns, they'll finish there and move on within 6 months. 6 months, repeated Dr. Kim, to learn alien technology, develop new weapons, and prepare for an interstellar war. It's an impossible timeline, agreed Dr. Quintal, which is why we need human innovation. You've accomplished impossible things before. President Martinez stood and walked to a large window overlooking the base. Outside, Dr. Quintal could see humans going about their daily activities, aircraft taking off and landing, personnel moving between buildings, vehicles transporting supplies. All of it happening with mechanical precision despite the chaotic environment. There's something you need to understand about humanity, she said without turning around. We don't just adapt to challenges. We turn challenges into advantages. This world that you call a death world, it made us strong. Every disaster, every crisis, every impossible situation, we learned from it. She turned back to face the room. But we also learned that strength without purpose is just destruction. If we're going to fight this war, it won't be as mercenaries or as weapons for hire. It will be as partners in building something better. Dr. Quintal felt a surge of hope. You're agreeing to the alliance? I'm agreeing to consider it, pending approval from Congress and our allied nations. But first, I want to see this galactic community you're talking about. I want to meet these other species and understand what we'd be fighting for. That could be arranged. My ship can transport a small diplomatic delegation. General Parker leaned forward. And I want to see detailed intelligence on these Void Hunters. Ship configurations, weapon systems, tactical patterns, everything you have. Of course. Dr. Kim stood up. And I want access to your technology databases. If we're going to innovate, we need to understand what we're working with. Granted, President Martinez nodded. Then, let's start with a tour. Admiral Chun, prepare a diplomatic mission. General Parker, begin preliminary threat assessments. Dr. Kim, start reviewing whatever technical data our guests can provide. As the meeting broke up and humans began making preparations, Dr. Quintal felt both relief and apprehension. The humans had agreed to consider the alliance, but he was beginning to understand that bringing humanity into galactic affairs would change everything. Not just the war with the Void Hunters, but the entire structure of galactic civilization. Over the following days, Dr. Quintal found himself constantly surprised by human capabilities. Their delegation prepared for space travel with an efficiency that rivaled veteran galactic diplomats. Their scientists absorbed technical information at a rate that challenged his understanding of human neurology. Their military leaders asked questions that revealed tactical insights his own people hadn't considered. Most unsettling was their casual acceptance of risk. When he explained the dangers of hyperspace travel to first-time passengers, they simply asked for safety protocols and moved on. When he described the various hostile environments they might encounter on alien worlds, they requested appropriate equipment and began training exercises. It was as if they had been preparing for galactic contact their entire lives. The revelation came when Dr. Kim approached him with a question that stopped him cold. Dr. Quintal, in all your studies of human behavior, did you ever consider that we might have been preparing for this moment without knowing it? What do you mean? Every science fiction story, every military exercise, every technological development. We've been unconsciously preparing for the day when we'd encounter other intelligent life and need to either cooperate or compete with them. Our entire civilization has been a 1,000-year training program for galactic contact. As Dr. Quintal considered her words, he realized that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their capacity for violence or their ability to adapt. It was their imagination. They had spent centuries imagining every possible scenario for contact with alien life, and now they were ready to turn those imaginations into reality. He began to suspect that the Galactic Council hadn't just made contact with potential allies. They had awakened something that would reshape the galaxy forever. The galactic capital of Nexus Prime had never hosted human visitors before, and Dr. Quintal could see the effect immediately as the human diplomatic ship emerged from hyperspace. What should have been routine docking procedures became chaotic as traffic control struggled to accommodate a vessel that didn't follow standard galactic design principles. Human vessel, your ship configuration is not in our databases, came the confused transmission from orbital control. Please transmit technical specifications for docking compatibility. Admiral Chen's voice responded from the human ship with characteristic directness. We've transmitted our specifications 3 times already. Our ship will fit in docking bay 7. Send a tug if you're worried about it. Dr. Quintal couldn't help but notice how the human response bypassed the elaborate courtesy protocols that typically govern galactic communications. Within minutes, the debate was settled when the human ship simply docked itself with mechanical precision, ignoring the traffic control suggestions entirely. The human delegation that emerged from the ship drew stares from every species present. President Martinez led the group, flanked by Admiral Chun, General Parker, and Dr. Kim. Their movements were different from any galactic species. Purposeful, controlled, with an underlying tension that suggested they were constantly aware of potential threats. "Welcome to Nexus Prime," Dr. Quintal said as they met in the docking bay. "The Council is eager to meet you." "The feeling is mutual," replied President Martinez, though her eyes were clearly cataloging defensive positions and exit routes. "This station is impressive. How many species are represented here?" "Currently, 47 different species work on this station. It serves as both the political center of galactic civilization and a cultural exchange hub." As they moved through the station corridors, Dr. Quintal watched the reactions of other galactic citizens to the human presence. The ethereal collective representatives became more translucent, a sign of nervousness among their people. The plant-based Verdanians rustled their leaves and moved away from the walls, instinctively seeking open spaces. Even the usually confident Soren military officers seemed unsettled. "They're afraid of us," observed Dr. Kim quietly. "Not afraid," corrected Dr. Quintal. "Cautious. Your species radiates predatory signals that most galactic species recognize instinctively as dangerous. It's nothing personal. Their evolutionary instincts are simply responding to yours." General Parker studied the various aliens they passed. "How do these species fight?" "I don't see any obvious natural weapons, and their body language suggests they're not used to physical confrontation. Most galactic species evolved past physical competition millions of years ago. The ethereals are energy beings who resolve conflicts through consensus. The Verdanians reproduce through cooperation, so aggression was selected against. The Sorens appear warlike, but their wars are ritualized competitions with minimal casualties." Admiral Chen shook her head. "And these are the people trying to fight the Void Hunters?" "Until now, yes." The council chamber was magnificent, a vast sphere lined with seats designed for dozens of different physiologies. As the human delegation entered, conversation stopped. Dr. Quintal had never seen the chamber so quiet. Usually it buzzed with constant communication between species. Ambassador HFY materialized at the central podium, his ethereal form more solid than usual, indicating extreme concentration. "Honored humans, welcome to the Galactic Council. We are grateful you have come to hear our plea." President Martinez stepped forward. "Ambassador HFY, we appreciate the invitation. Before we discuss any alliance, we'd like to understand more about your civilization and these Void Hunters." What followed was a presentation that left the human delegation in thoughtful silence. Holographic displays showed the scale of galactic civilization. Millions of worlds, trillions of sentient beings, trade networks spanning entire galactic arms. The diversity was breathtaking. Species that lived in gas-giant atmospheres, creatures that existed as pure information, beings that had transcended physical form entirely. Then came the images of Void Hunter attacks. Unlike the sanitized military footage humans were used to, these recordings showed the complete extinction of entire species. Worlds stripped not just of life, but of the very elements that supported life. Space itself seemed to die around Void Hunter fleets. How many beings have they killed? Asked Dr. Kim, her scientific detachment wavering. Conservative estimates suggest 3 trillion sentient beings, replied Ambassador ZYXDH. But the number is growing exponentially. Each world they consume provides resources to build more ships, recruit more warriors. General Parker leaned forward. Recruit? They're using conquered populations? Not exactly. The Void Hunters don't take prisoners in any recognizable sense. They process organic matter and reconstruct it into more Void Hunters. The consciousness may survive in some form, but it serves their collective purpose. The human delegation exchanged glances. Dr. Quintal recognized the look. It was the same expression he'd seen in recordings of human military leaders planning responses to existential threats. Show us their military capabilities, said Admiral Chun. The holographic display changed to show Void Hunter fleet movements. Their ships were massive, dark structures that seemed to bend light around them. They moved in perfect coordination, like a single organism with many parts. Individual ships range from 1 to 50 kilometers in length, explained General Kresh, the Soren military representative. Their weapons appear to disrupt molecular bonds, effectively dissolving anything they target. Their defenses have proven immune to every weapon we've tried. What about their numbers? Asked President Martinez. Current estimates suggest approximately 50,000 ships of various sizes, growing by several hundred each month as they consume more resources. General Parker whistled softly. That's a significant force. What kind of numbers can the galactic community field? Ambassador ZYXTH's form flickered with embarrassment. Our combined military forces total approximately 3,000 ships. Most species maintain only small defensive fleets. 3,000 against 50,000, mused Admiral Chun. And you're losing ships faster than you can replace them. Precisely, which is why we need human tactical expertise. President Martinez stood and walked to the holographic display, studying the Void Hunter ship formations. Dr. Quintal mentioned that humans and Void Hunters evolved under similar conditions. What can you tell us about their homeworld? Dr. Quintal activated his personal display. Their world is designated Devour Prime, though we don't know their name for it. Surface temperature ranges from 400 to 800 degrees Celsius. Atmospheric pressure is 30 times Earth standard. The surface is almost entirely volcanic, with seas of molten metal. Worse than Earth, observed Dr. Kim. Much worse. But like Earth, it created beings adapted for extreme survival. The difference is that Devour Prime never developed stable ecosystems. Everything that evolved there was in constant competition for limited resources. General Parker studied the tactical data. That explains their behavior. They're not evil in any human sense. They're just doing what they evolved to do, which makes them predictable in some ways, added President Martinez. If they're purely consumption-driven, they'll have certain behavioral patterns. Ambassador Yilia of the Verdanian Empire rustled her leaves nervously. You speak as if you understand them. We understand survival pressure, replied President Martinez. Earth put us through similar challenges, but we learned to cooperate as well as compete. That's our advantage. The session continued for hours as humans asked detailed questions about galactic technology, resource distribution, manufacturing capabilities, and defensive strategies. Dr. Quintal was impressed by the depth and sophistication of their inquiries. They were clearly thinking several steps ahead. Finally, President Martinez requested a private consultation with her team. The galactic representatives withdrew to an adjacent chamber, leaving the humans alone to deliberate. What's your assessment? Dr. Quintal asked Ambassador ZYXDH during the break. They're extraordinary, the ethereal replied. Their questions reveal strategic thinking beyond anything in our databases. But I'm concerned about their methods. What do you mean? Listen to their conversation. Dr. Quintal activated his translation matrix and focused on the human voices carrying through the chamber walls. What he heard chilled him. The galactic fleet is useless, General Parker was saying. 3,000 ships against 50,000? They need to abandon conventional tactics entirely. Agreed, replied Admiral Chun. But they also have manufacturing capabilities we can't match. If we can hold the Void Hunters for 6 months, we might be able to build a real fleet. The key is force multiplication, added Dr. Kim. Every human ship needs to be worth 10 of theirs. That means asymmetric warfare, guerrilla tactics, psychological operations. President Martinez's voice cut through the discussion. We're not just fighting the Void Hunters. We're fighting to reshape how this galaxy thinks about conflict. These species have never faced existential threats before. You think they can learn? Asked General Parker. They'll have to, because once we win this war, the galaxy is going to be a very different place. Dr. Quintal realized that the humans weren't just planning to defeat the Void Hunters. They were planning to transform galactic civilization itself. The question was whether that transformation would be an improvement or a new kind of threat. When the humans emerged from their consultation, President Martinez addressed the Council directly. We'll accept the alliance on the following conditions. First, human tactical command over all military operations. Second, unrestricted access to galactic technology and manufacturing. Third, establishment of integrated training programs for all galactic military forces. And, in return, asked Ambassador ZYXDH, we'll stop the Void Hunters. But, more than that, we'll make sure this never happens again. When we're done, the galaxy will be able to defend itself against any threat. The vote was unanimous. The alliance was formed. As the ceremonies concluded and technical teams began planning the integration of human and galactic systems, Dr. Quintal reflected on what they had accomplished. They had gained powerful allies who might be able to defeat the Void Hunters. But he couldn't shake the feeling that they had also unleashed something that would change the galaxy forever. The humans spoke of victory with a certainty that was both reassuring and terrifying. They planned not just to survive the war, but to reshape civilization itself. As Dr. Quintal watched human technical specialists already working with galactic engineers to modify ship designs and weapon systems, he wondered if the Council had made a wise decision or a fatal mistake of a different kind. The transformation of the galactic military happened with frightening speed. Within 3 months of the alliance, human tactical doctrines had spread throughout every defensive installation in the galaxy. Dr. Quintal watched in amazement as species that had never conceived of true warfare began training in combat maneuvers that would have been impossible for them to imagine. The ethereal collective, beings of pure energy who had resolved conflicts through mental consensus for millions of years, were learning to coordinate defensive formations. The Verdanians, whose plant-based physiology made them naturally cooperative, were studying asymmetric warfare tactics. Even the proud Sorens, who had considered themselves the galaxy's premier military force, were discovering that their ritualized combat traditions were inadequate for real war. It's remarkable, Admiral Chun told Dr. Quintal as they reviewed training footage from the Nexus Defense Academy. Your species have capabilities we never imagined, but you've never needed to use them aggressively. The Ethereals can coordinate fleet movements telepathically across light years. The Verdanians can regrow damaged ships using biological engineering. The Sorens have reaction times that make them perfect fighter pilots. But you're changing how they think about conflict itself, observed Dr. Quintal. We're teaching them to survive. There's a difference. The changes weren't limited to military training. Human engineers have begun revolutionizing galactic technology by applying what they called battlefield innovation, the rapid development and deployment of new technologies under pressure. Dr. Kim's research teams had taken galactic manufacturing techniques and compressed development cycles from decades to weeks. The problem with galactic technology, Dr. Kim explained during one of her briefings, is that it's been optimized for stability and efficiency over millions of years. But that also makes it predictable. The Void Hunters have had centuries to develop countermeasures. Her solution was controlled chaos, intentionally introducing variability and unpredictability into galactic systems. Ships now carried multiple weapon types that could be reconfigured mid-battle. Defense platforms used adaptive algorithms that changed tactics faster than enemies could respond. Even communication protocols incorporated randomized elements to prevent interception. The first test of these new capabilities came sooner than expected. A Void Hunter scouting force of 12 ships emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler Nebula, a region that contained 17 inhabited systems and served as a major trade hub. Contact, came the alert from the Deep Space Monitoring Station. Void Hunter ships detected at coordinates 77 Alpha. They're moving toward the Kepler system. Within minutes, the new integrated command structure swung into action. Admiral Chun coordinated with galactic fleet commanders while General Parker managed ground-based defenses. Dr. Kim's technical teams began deploying adaptive countermeasures, and President Martinez maintained communication with political leaders to prevent panic. All units, this is Admiral Chun. Her voice carried across the communication network. Execute Protocol Prometheus. Repeat, execute Protocol Prometheus. Dr. Quintal watched from the command center as the galactic response unfolded. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. Instead of the traditional direct engagement that had consistently failed against Void Hunter forces, the Allied fleet employed what humans called layered harassment. Long-range units hit the Void Hunter ships with modified energy weapons designed to drain their shields without triggering their adaptive defenses. Mid-range forces used kinetic bombardments to force the enemy ships into predictable evasion patterns. Close-range fighters, piloted primarily by Soren volunteers, struck critical systems and withdrew before the Void Hunters could respond. "They're trying to adapt," reported Commander Veltar from the lead Soren fighter wing. "But every time they adjust to one attack pattern, we switch to another." The battle lasted 6 hours, longer than any previous engagement with the Void Hunters. More importantly, it ended with the complete destruction of the enemy scouting force and 0 Allied casualties. "How?" asked Ambassadors IXDH as the command staff reviewed the battle recordings. "Every previous encounter resulted in catastrophic losses for our forces." General Parker displayed a tactical analysis. "The Void Hunters are perfect predators, but they've never faced prey that fought back effectively. They've developed strategies based on overwhelming force against defenseless targets. When they encounter coordinated resistance, their adaptability works against them." "I don't understand," said the ethereal ambassador. "They adapt quickly to individual threats," explained Admiral Chun. "But they can't adapt to multiple simultaneous threats that keep changing. It's like trying to hit a dozen different moving targets that all move differently every few seconds." Dr. Kim added technical details. "Our analysis shows they have neural processing limitations. They can handle complex problems, but not an infinite number of complex problems simultaneously. We're essentially creating cognitive overload." The victory at Kepler Nebula sent shockwaves throughout both galactic civilization and Void Hunter territory. For the first time in their recorded history, the Void Hunters had suffered a complete defeat. Galactic morale soared while intelligence reports suggested the enemy was reassessing their strategies. But Dr. Quintal noticed something troubling in the celebration. The galactic species weren't just relieved, they were excited. Races that had never known the thrill of victory in battle were discovering what humans called the warrior spirit. "Is this what you intended?" he asked President Martinez during a strategy meeting. "Part of it," she replied honestly, "but not all of it. We're seeing some species embrace conflict in ways that concern us." Her concerns proved justified when the Soren Empire formally requested human training in what they called advanced combat doctrines. The plant-based Verdanians began developing what they termed aggressive agriculture, weaponized biological systems. Even the pacifist Ethereal Collective started experimenting with combat meditation techniques. "We may have created a larger problem," Admiral Chun confided to Dr. Quintal. "We're teaching peaceful species to think like warriors. Once this war is over, what happens to all that martial capability?" The question became more pressing as intelligence reports revealed the Void Hunter response to their defeat. Instead of retreating, they were consolidating forces and adapting their tactics. Their next attack would involve not hundreds of ships, but thousands. "They're learning from us," Dr. Kim reported grimly. Sensor data from border regions shows they're implementing coordinated attack patterns and defensive formations. They're becoming more dangerous, not less. General Parker studied the enemy movement patterns. They're also moving faster than before. Previous intelligence suggested they took months to fully consume a system. Now they're stripping worlds in weeks and moving on. "They're trying to build up overwhelming force before we can stop them," realized Admiral Chun. Classic military doctrine. If you can't win through superiority, win through sheer numbers. President Martinez made the decision that would define the rest of the war. We escalate. "General Parker, I want every human military asset prepared for deployment." Admiral Chun, begin full integration of galactic and human fleets. Dr. Kim, accelerate all technology development programs. "Ma'am," said General Parker carefully, "that means revealing capabilities we've kept in reserve." I'm aware of that, General. But if we lose this war, our secrets won't matter anyway. What followed was a revelation that stunned even Dr. Quintal. Humanity's small defensive fleet turned out to be the visible portion of a military infrastructure that spanned their entire solar system. Hidden bases on asteroids, weapons platforms disguised as research stations, and manufacturing facilities that had been producing military equipment for decades. "You've been preparing for interstellar war for how long?" asked Dr. Quintal. "Since we detected artificial signals from other star systems," replied Dr. Kim. "We hoped for peaceful contact, but we prepared for the alternative." The scale was breathtaking. Thousands of ships emerged from concealed positions throughout human space. Advanced weapons systems that incorporated technologies Dr. Quintal hadn't seen in the galactic databases. Manufacturing capabilities that could produce fleet-scale assets in weeks instead of years. But the most shocking revelation was the personnel numbers. Humanity's population was larger than galactic estimates by a factor of 10. Hidden colonies throughout their solar system, space-based habitats, even experimental settlements in other star systems that they had reached using sublight vessels decades before. "You've been lying to us," accused Ambassador ZYXDH. "We've been cautious," corrected President Martinez. "You approached us as a species desperate for help against an enemy that had destroyed 17 star systems. Would you have revealed all your capabilities to someone in that situation?" The ethereal ambassador's form flickered with what Dr. Quintal recognized as confusion. "But you agreed to help us because it was the right thing to do, and because the Void Hunters represent a threat to everyone, including us." As the combined human galactic fleet prepared for what intelligence predicted would be the largest space battle in galactic history, Dr. Quintal found himself struggling with conflicting emotions. Relief that they had allies capable of matching the Void Hunter threat. Fear about what humanity might do after the war ended. And wonder at having witnessed the emergence of a species that might reshape galactic civilization. Dr. Quintal, President Martinez approached him in the command center. "I want you to know that humanity values this alliance. Whatever happens in the coming battle, we're committed to building something better when it's over." "Something better than what?" he asked. She gestured toward the tactical displays, showing thousands of ships from dozens of species working together in formations that would have been impossible months earlier. "Something better than a galaxy that can be threatened by a single aggressive species. Something better than civilizations that can't defend what they've built. And if other species decide they don't want to be part of your vision of better," President Martinez was quiet for a moment. "Then we'll have to hope they make that decision based on understanding rather than fear." As the fleet moved toward their confrontation with the Void Hunter Armada, Dr. Quintal realized that the war's outcome would determine more than survival. It would determine what kind of galaxy emerged from the ashes of the old order, one shaped by human ideals of strength and cooperation, or one torn apart by the very forces they had unleashed to save it. The Battle of the Void began at the edge of the Perseus Arm, where 23,000 Void Hunter ships had gathered in the largest concentration of their forces ever recorded. The combined Human Galactic Alliance fleet numbered 8,000 vessels, but Dr. Quintal had learned not to judge human military capabilities by conventional mathematics. "All ships, this is Admiral Chun." Her voice carried across the fleet communications network. "Today we end a threat that has consumed trillions of lives. We fight not just for survival, but for the future of all galactic civilization. Execute Operation Deathworld." The name was ominous, and Dr. Quintal soon understood why. Instead of the traditional fleet engagement that galactic military doctrine would have prescribed, the human strategy turned the battlefield itself into a weapon. The first phase involved what humans called environmental warfare. Using modified mining equipment, human engineering ships had spent weeks seeding the battle zone with gravitational anomalies, sensor-disrupting particle fields, and what Dr. Kim's teams called space mines, devices that didn't explode but instead created localized physics distortions. Void Hunter fleet is adjusting formation, reported Commander Veltar from his Soren fighter squadron. "They're trying to navigate around the anomaly fields." "Exactly what we want," replied General Parker from the Tactical Command Center. "Force them into predictable patterns, then exploit those patterns." The second phase began as the Void Hunter fleet entered what appeared to be clear space. Hidden throughout the region were thousands of small automated platforms that had been disguised as debris. As the enemy ships passed, these platforms activated, not with weapons, but with adaptive shield generators that began copying and analyzing Void Hunter defensive technologies. Fascinating, observed Dr. Kim as she monitored the data streams. Their shields operate on quantum frequency modulation, but they're locked into specific harmonic patterns. If we can match those patterns, we can walk right through them, finished Admiral Chun. Proceed with Phase 3. What happened next defied everything Dr. Quintal thought he knew about space warfare. Instead of engaging the enemy fleet directly, human ships began appearing inside the Void Hunter formations. Not through superior speed or stealth technology, but by literally matching the quantum frequencies of enemy shields and passing through them. The psychological impact was immediate. Void Hunter ships, which had never faced enemies capable of bypassing their defenses, began firing on each other in confusion as human vessels appeared among them like ghosts. "This is impossible," transmitted a Void Hunter commander on an open frequency. "Your technology cannot penetrate our defenses." President Martinez herself responded, "You're right. Our technology can't penetrate your defenses. But we don't need to penetrate them. We just need to think like them." The battle evolved into something that was part military engagement and part technological demonstration. Human tactics didn't rely on superior firepower, but on superior adaptability. When Void Hunter ships adjusted their shield frequencies, human vessels immediately matched the new patterns. When they changed formation, human ships appeared in the gaps. When they attempted to withdraw, they found their escape routes blocked by forces that seemed to anticipate every move. But the most devastating human weapon wasn't technological at all. It was psychological. Using their understanding of Void Hunter communication systems, human cyber warfare specialists began broadcasting across their networks. "Attention, Void Hunter forces," came the transmission. "This is Dr. Sarah Kim of the Human Research Division. We've been studying your species for months now. We know you evolved on a world where consumption was the only survival strategy. We know you process organic matter into new units because your environment taught you that everything must be consumed or it will consume you." The enemy fleet's coordination began to deteriorate as the transmission continued. But here's what your world never taught you: cooperation. Your ships are individual predators working together out of necessity, not choice. When that necessity disappears, so does your unity. We're offering individual ships the chance to surrender and be relocated to environments more suitable to your species. Dr. Quintal watched in amazement as chaos spread through the Void Hunter fleet. Ships that had operated in perfect coordination for centuries began questioning orders, abandoning formations, and, in some cases, turning on each other. "How is this possible?" he asked Admiral Chun. "Divide and conquer," she replied. "It's one of humanity's oldest military strategies. The Void Hunters are perfect as a unified force, but they've never had to deal with internal division. We're not just fighting their ships, we're fighting their social structure." The turning point came when the largest Void Hunter vessel, a 50-kilometer dreadnought that served as their command ship, suddenly stopped firing and began transmitting on human frequencies. "Human commanders, this is Devourer Prime Alpha, designated commander of this fleet. We request negotiation." The bridge fell silent. No one had expected the Void Hunters to be capable of surrender. "This is President Martinez. We're listening. Your species confuses us. You possess the strength of Deathworlders, but use cooperation strategies. You show mercy to defeated enemies, but demonstrate capabilities that could destroy us completely. We do not understand your purpose." President Martinez looked at her command staff, then made a decision that would reshape galactic history. "Our purpose is survival through growth, not consumption through destruction. We're willing to discuss alternatives to this conflict." What followed was the most unprecedented negotiation in galactic history. Broadcast live across both fleets, the conversation between humanity and the Void Hunters revealed truths that shocked everyone involved. The Void Hunters weren't evil in any conventional sense. They were desperate. Their homeworld was dying, consumed by the very volcanic processes that had created them. They'd been desperately searching for ways to preserve their species, and consumption had been their only successful strategy. "We require vast resources to maintain our population," explained Devourer Prime Alpha. Our metabolism demands constant energy input. When we encounter worlds with sufficient resources, we must claim them, or our people die. What if we could offer you alternatives? Asked Dr. Kim. The galaxy has uninhabited systems with energy-rich environments. Gas giants with atmospheric compositions that could sustain your species without requiring the destruction of inhabited worlds. The negotiation lasted 3 days. During that time, the fleets maintained their positions while human scientists worked with Void Hunter technicians to explore possibilities that neither species had considered. The solution, when it emerged, was elegantly simple. The Void Hunters would be relocated to uninhabited systems where they could pursue their consumption-based lifestyle without threatening other species. In exchange, they would provide technological knowledge and assistance in creating defensive networks that could prevent future existential threats to galactic civilization. You would trust us after everything we have done? Asked Devourer Prime Alpha. We would give you a chance to prove that trust is justified, replied President Martinez. That's what civilized species do. The aftermath of the Battle of the Void was as transformative as the battle itself. The Void Hunter Relocation Project became the largest cooperative effort in galactic history, involving dozens of species working together to establish new colonies and monitoring systems. But the real change was in the galactic mindset. Species that had never needed to consider military capability suddenly found themselves with advanced defensive technologies and tactical knowledge. The peaceful equilibrium that had defined galactic civilization for millions of years was replaced by a more dynamic balance of cooperation and strength. Are you satisfied with the outcome? Dr. Quintal asked President Martinez as they observed the final phases of Void Hunter relocation. Satisfied? No, she replied, but hopeful. We've shown that it's possible to resolve even the most extreme conflicts through strength combined with wisdom. The question now is whether galactic civilization can maintain that balance. Her concern proved prescient. Within months, several species had used human-inspired technologies to settle old territorial disputes. The Soren Empire began expanding more aggressively, confident in their new military capabilities. Even the peaceful Verdanians started claiming previously neutral systems for defensive purposes. We may have solved one problem by creating another, observed Admiral Chun during a strategy meeting. These species are learning to think like warriors, but they haven't learned to think like soldiers. What's the difference? Asked Dr. Quintal. Warriors fight for victory. Soldiers fight for peace. The solution came from an unexpected source. Dr. Kim proposed the establishment of what she called the Galactic Defense Academy, where all species could learn not just military tactics, but military ethics. The curriculum would include human concepts like rules of engagement, protection of civilians, and proportional response. We're not just teaching them how to fight, she explained to the Galactic Council. We're teaching them why to fight and when not to fight. The Academy became a model for the new galactic order. Species learned to defend themselves while maintaining the cooperative principles that had made galactic civilization possible. Former enemies became training partners. Worlds that had been defenseless developed the capability to protect themselves without becoming aggressive. Dr. Quintal found himself serving as one of the Academy's first instructors, teaching courses on human military philosophy to students from dozens of worlds. The irony wasn't lost on him. He, who had once feared humanity as a potential threat, was now helping spread human ideas throughout the galaxy. Do you regret contacting us? President Martinez asked him during one of her visits to the Academy. No, he replied after careful thought. But I sometimes wonder what galactic civilization would have looked like if we had found another solution to the Void Hunter threat. Probably extinct, she said bluntly. The galaxy needed to learn that peaceful civilization requires the capability for effective defense. We just accelerated a lesson it would have had to learn eventually. Years later, as Dr. Quintal watched mixed-species crews training on scenarios that would have been unimaginable before human contact, he reflected on the transformation they had all undergone. The galaxy was no longer the same peaceful paradise it had been, but it was stronger, more resilient, and better prepared for whatever challenges the universe might present. Humanity had indeed been a fatal mistake for the old galactic order. But from the ashes of that mistake, something better had emerged. A civilization that combined the wisdom of ages with the strength to protect what it had built. The greatest lesson, Dr. Quintal realized, was that sometimes the most dangerous choice was also the right choice. The aliens had summoned Deathworlders, and humanity had responded in force. But they had responded not just with violence, but with the warrior's wisdom that true strength served to protect rather than to dominate. In the end, the galaxy's fatal mistake had become its salvation.